Hey everybody, it's Jay and Gay, host of the Pursuing Excellence podcast here. Just want to take a minute and say, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many different platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pursuing Excellence podcast. I'm your host, Jay Gay, and today on the podcast I have Dexter Wood, athletic director at Buford High School, coached there for 1995 to 2005, 3 state championships, 2 runner-ups, won 47 games in a row, and his total wins was 257, 92 losses, 3 ties, I believe. He was also inducted into the Georgia Athletics Association Hall of Fame, an athletic program since Mr. Wood took over as athletic director. 26 state championships overall. This is an awesome program, Coach, and thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Jay, I'm honored to be with you. I commend you for using your talents and skills to do a podcast such as this. The topic of excellence is near and dear to my heart and really is the foundation of what we have built our program at Buford. So it's an honor to be with you today.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, let's get started off with how did your faith, Coach, in Jesus Christ designate how you lead as a coach and, and just overall as an important figure as you have been throughout your career?
Well, my faith in Christ, my Christian walk is the number one priority in my life. For my family, for my work, for my job as a coach. I feel like that everything I do as a husband, father, and as a coach is a gift from God. And my job is to steward it to the best of my ability to give glory to Him. And so when I began coaching, it was really a type of ministry for me. I wanted to use football as a way to reach young men to give a purpose and self-control in their life based out of 1 Corinthians 9:24, and then use the great game of football as a vehicle to strive for championships while we're doing that. So at the forefront of who I am and what I've wanted to do as a coach has been to bring glory to Christ and to do it in the right way, and hopefully, build crowns for eternity in the right way. So thank you for asking that.
Yes, sir. Of course. Like I said, this podcast I do, it's not so much football driven or sports driven, but just, getting different perspectives on how, your faith in Jesus Christ plays a role in how you drive throughout your career and how successful you've been or you are throughout your career. And I think that's the most important factor in everything.
And you're exactly right, Jaden. And I greatly commend you and applaud you and thank you for making that the first question you would ask me. So I'm honored.
Yes, sir. Coach, talk about when did you come to know Jesus Christ?
Jaden, I grew up kind of religious, going to church, but football and sports were really my God. So I get to the University of Alabama where I'm on a football team, and I get around some other guys that are also Christians, but I noticed that there was a real difference in their life with the way they conducted themselves, with peace and power and purpose in their life. And so not long after I'd been to Alabama, through the witness and testimony of some of my teammates, I came not to know religion, but to a relationship with Jesus Christ, and I trusted Him when I was a freshman in college. So that's been my walk, and the growing relationship that I've had with Him that when I came to know Him in Alabama. And so that became a priority again, and my whole life was to seek ways to serve Him through the work that I was going to do. At the time, I didn't know I was going to be a coach, but I just knew that whatever I did, I wanted to be in His will and pleasing to Him.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, Coach, talk about how did you get into Coach? Talk about, well, before we get into that, talk about high school. Where'd you attend high school and college, and then eventually, getting into coaching. How did all that come along through that process?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a small town in South Alabama, actually, and neither of my parents had gone to college, and I really didn't have any kinfolks. I didn't have any role models. Grew up somewhat, not well off necessarily and didn't have a lot of things, but I was a pretty good athlete and a pretty good guy and developed skills and had a dream one day that I wanted to go to college and play football for Alabama, and somehow God allowed that to happen. And so that, while in high school, I was certainly a football player and a basketball player and ran track. In a small town, you do everything. And so, I kind of grew up doing all those things, but certainly when I got to Alabama, football was my priority, and playing there for 4 years, besides my Christian faith, was probably the second biggest influence on my life in terms of shaping me into the type of leader and coach that I think I've become.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, describe, your experience playing for the great Paul Bear Bryant while at the University of Alabama. They've had, I think, the best football program in, the entire country for as long as I can remember. And so talk about Coach Bear Bryant and how, and playing for him at the University of Alabama near your collegiate career.
Well, like I said, it was a great experience, and I want to tell you it's the hardest thing I'd ever done, because part of Alabama football back in that day with Coach Bryant was to see how much it meant to you, and there was a lot of strain and a lot of sacrifice, and obviously a lot of hard work and mental and physical toughness that went in to being able to play there. And back in those days, you could sign a multitude of players, like 45 players a year, so a lot of the players just couldn't cut it. I signed with 45 players, and 4 years later, there were only 17 of us left. So that kind of describes the situation it was in terms of being hard, but yet rewarding. I learned what effort and toughness. I learned what doing things first class was. I learned what a team was. I learned what it meant to aim for a national championship and to try to be the best and to do it in the right way. And I learned to do it with a lot of great teammates and coaches. So it was a great, great experience to play for Coach Bryant in Alabama.
Yes, sir. And did playing for Coach Bryant, when you became a coach, did he influence you in a way in your coaching styles that you picked up from him? Did you incorporate that in the way you coached when you started at Buford? Or when you started coaching in general, and talk about that.
Yeah, well, certainly did. And I'll tell you this story and probably explain. So I'm about to graduate at Alabama, and I got a business degree. I'm not planning on going into teaching and coaching, but I was beginning to think about it a little bit. So I decided I would go see Coach Bear Bryant and ask him about going into coaching, what he thought about it.
Right.
And so that meeting really transformed my life. I went into the room scared to death, and it didn't last very long. Coach Bryant wasn't very verbal, but he gave me 2 or 3 pieces of advice that I have followed all through my career. And the first thing he says is, don't go into coaching unless you can't live without it. And didn't really understand that completely at the time, but I've come to say that what he was really saying, that coaching is a calling. I mentioned to you earlier that I felt like going into coaching was a ministry to me. So I feel like I was called by the Lord to do this. I feel like he equipped me and he skilled me and he motivated me. And so that was the first piece of advice that really struck home with me. Can I live without it? And I felt like it was something that I was called to do. And then he told me 2 things. He says that if you do go into coaching, always remember 2 things. Number one, always surround yourself with people, really good people even better than you. And so I followed that. All of my success in coaching has been due to being in situations where I had great assistant coaches, great principals and superintendents, great booster club members, great parents, and great players, all people that had the same goals and visions and dreams and manner of wanting to do things. So that piece of advice was very key to my success and what I've been able to do. And then the last thing he told me is that the second thing, if you go into coaching, just always have a plan and be detailed and organized and don't let things surprise you. And so that was a little hard. I had to grow as a coach. That didn't always come easy to young coaches, but as I got older and older, I learned more about X's and O's and schemes and the details and organizational coaching, and that became a real strength of mine. So that's how my coaching career got started, from Coach Wright giving me that kind of advice. I left that day and decided I would try coaching, and that was 47 years ago, and I still enjoy going to the school building to this day.
Yes, sir. Coach, talk about, everybody knows you, mainly for being at Buford, everything. But talk about your career before you arrived at Buford. Where did you start off?
Yeah, I moved around a little bit starting off. I really became a head coach pretty early. My second year out of college, I became a head football coach over in the Gadsden, Alabama area. My first head job was at a private school, much like Elka. And so I was there a couple of years, and then I decided to get some degrees and coached in that area. And then my wife was from the Atlanta area, and we moved to Atlanta after about 10 years. And my first job over in Atlanta was at Lassiter High School. I opened that. And then I moved to Marietta High School, where I spent almost 9 years. And just, I think that's really where I blossomed as a coach and had some really great players and some great teams and really enjoyed myself. And so after 8 or 9 years there, I'd kind of been looking to move on the other side of town where our church was, and wanted to spend a little bit more time with my son going into middle school and those kinds of things. And I heard about Buford High School, and I checked into it. And lo and behold, that was almost 26 years ago that they hired me as the head football coach. At the time, I was not the athletic director, I was the football coach because I wanted to slow down. 4 years later, they appointed me the athletic director, and I took over the whole athletic program. So it's been, like I said, a 26-year great ride at Buford in trying to develop the kind of program that we're experiencing right now.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And Coach, like I said, you've been at Buford. What was who would you say was the best football player you've ever had? In all your years of coaching, who was a guy that just is a phenomenal talent? Describe that for me.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them, but I would probably have to say that the best overall high school football player I had was my quarterback at Marietta my last 2 years. His name is Eric Zier. He went on to Georgia and set all kind of passing records. He didn't even really wasn't that great in the NFL. Stayed there 6 years, but he's presently the voice of Georgia Bulldog football. So Eric Zier was probably the greatest high school football player I ever had. Closely, though, at Buford, I had a Darius Walker, who was a Gatorade Player of the Year and had a great career at Notre Dame. I had Tim Wansley, who was my quarterback defensive back, was all SEC at Georgia, and also won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wow.
And then I had PK Sal, a receiver, was all conference and a great player at Florida State, and won a Super Bowl ring with the New England Patriots. So I'd put those 4 guys right up there as the greatest ones I coached.
Right. Yeah, and that's amazing. Those guys who you coached by you, and then go on and be successful in their careers. Like you mentioned, some of them playing NFL and win Super Bowls. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Coach. I appreciate that. And also, Coach, I wanted to ask you, what would you say? What would you say are what, in your opinion, makes an excellent football player?
What makes an excellent football player?
Yes.
Well, our number one philosophy at Buford that we're building our program is that if you want to try to strive to win championships, it starts with talented players who are committed to a year-round development of their skills while doing other things. And so I think great football players certainly have to have some God-given ability. But the great ones also take that God-given ability and they develop their skills and they work at it. And whether that's a weight room or in the off-season going to camps, it becomes a passion of theirs, and they're committed to excellence and being the very best they can be on a daily basis in every area of their life. And the great ones I've been around have been driven not to win championships, but to be the very best version of myself I can be, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Those are the guys that get it. And to me, that's what a great football player looks like.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And that's, being a football player myself, pretty much my whole life. That's, what I've been driving myself to be, is the best version of myself that I can possibly be. Always going to work, trying to get better, whether that's on the field or in the classroom or in the weight room or my walk with Christ. That's my thing. How can I be the best version of myself that I can possibly be? And I think if the players buy into that, then it can be huge. What could benefit?
And Jaden, it's so awesome you hear that. I'd love to shake your hand right now and hug your neck and just say, man, too many teenage guys don't get it like that.
Right.
You played under the coach and around the kind of people that believe that. And as you know, the kind of people around you have a lot to do with influencing you and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you've had influence on them. But it's rare to have those kind of young men. And I'm just glad I'm talking to one.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And like I said, that's just my MO. That's what drives me to get up every day. And asking myself that question: how can I be the best version of myself that I can possibly be? And all to glorify God through everything, regardless of the championships or this or that or the accolades. It's all, at the end of the day, we play this great game to glorify Him. That's what I believe. I know you believe as well. And so,
yes, sir. Amen. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. And Coach, last question for you. So you say you obviously you were a football coach at Buford, but what ended up calling you to step down from the head coaching role and into the athletic director role?
Well, Jaden, I've been a head football coach for 31 years, and so that was a long time.
Right.
And about the time 31 years rolled around, my son Ryan got a football scholarship to Duke. And I really wanted to go see him play and didn't want to be distracted with, having to rush back to get our team ready for games. So that I retired as he entered Duke as a freshman. And so all that kind of came together. There was probably times when he retired, and then my son was going off to college, and that freed me up. And then I just wanted to throw all of my energies into not only leading football to championships, but I wanted to have the same kind of impact on all of our athletic programs and all of our coaches. And so that freed me up to do that. So that's much of the reasons for why I got out of coaching and became a full-time athletic director.
Absolutely, Coach. And that's, like I said earlier, you guys, it shows. Buford, one of the best athletic programs, not only in the state of Georgia, but I think in the country as well. And just all throughout all the sports, you guys are always just competitive and hard workers and successful. And I just admire you for building, continue to build up that program and everything. It's just amazing what you guys have done over there.
Well, I appreciate that, Jay. As you know, Alka, there's a right way to do things, and you can win a lot of different ways, but you can win with class. You can win with respect and trust and love among players and coaches and a community. And you can do it with dignity, and you can do it the right way. And that's kind of the culture we have built. We don't do it perfectly all the time, but that's our motive. We're gonna coach and play hard. We're gonna have fun, but we're gonna respect, trust, love each other, and work a process all for a common goal. And we're all gonna be better off as people because of it, while we're still working toward be the best on the field or on the course or whatever we're trying to do. So that's the bottom line of our culture, and you've expressed it well with what you have been going through. And it takes great people, it takes great players and parents that are committed to it and trust that process. It takes a community that buys into it, and we got all those things going for us at Buford right now.
Absolutely, Coach. So that's going to wrap up the podcast for us today. Coach, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. And giving your insight into everything and just how, you came along throughout your career. It's been really interesting and fun to talk about that with you. And I really appreciate it.
Jay, thank you. And congratulations again on a great program you have. And God bless you.
Thank you, Coach. All right, everybody, that was Coach Dexter Wood, athletic director at Buford High School. Great program over there at Buford, and he's an amazing guy, Christian guy. He said it, they strive for excellence, and that's what we all should strive for, is how can we be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And I think he put a good stamp onto that, and that's how the culture is at Buford and others, and just a great program he has over there. So thank you guys for listening to the podcast. You can catch us next week on Pursuing Excellence. It's been Jay and Gay signing off. Have a good day.